Gretchen Rubin, welcome to the Mom Room. I heard that you just got off of a book tour for your new book. What
Yes.
what was that like? What is a book tour like? I feel like it's kind of like rock star vibes.
It's like what vibes?
Rock star, like
Oh,
you're touring, meeting
oh,
people, like
not the way I picture rock stars traveling, but it is fun. I mean, and it's intense. A lot of writers are pretty introverted and don't love getting out and about, but I really enjoy that part of it. I find it very energizing, and I love to hear what other people are thinking about and talking about. I did do 10 cities in 10 days,
what?
and I felt like I should like sacrifice a goat on the tarmac of LaGuardia Airport to
Oh,
like get the gods of the airports to bless me because it felt like impossible that that would be work, but it did. I
like
had amazing travels, and then I came home for 2 days and then left again to do a whole Florida piece, and that worked great too. So I was incredibly fortunate when it came to the traveling.
so not one flight was canceled.
Not one was canceled, and I had some connecting flights, and like one was slightly delayed,
Wow.
but it all worked out. So no, it was great, and so it was super fun. Like I love um, because I have podcast listeners who have never read my books. Then I have book readers who like didn't know I had a podcast. And anyway, it's very fun for all these groups to come together and very fun for me to get to talk about a book because it's always my favorite thing to talk about after I've written
Yeah.
it. So it's super fun.
Of course. So, one thing that I always ask moms specifically who come on the podcast
Mm.
is what their transition into motherhood was like. What do you remember about that time?
Well, it's funny that you should ask because we just got a puppy.
Oh,
We got a
wow.
9-week-old puppy, and I was like, oh wow, I kind of forgot about this whole thing. Like trying to learn their habits. Like, how do you know this little creature is hungry? And how do you know that they're sleepy? And how can, oh my gosh, something moved the nap time and like now chaos will
Potty
ensue.
training.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's for real. So I'm back in that stage right now. So, I feel like parenthood was probably the most transformative things that ever happened to me. And it continues to happen to me because, as we all know, as parents, like your children are always changing and growing. And so your experience as a parent, and the minute you think you've got a handle on it, everything changes.
Hmm.
So I do feel like it was just an earthquake in my life
How
for
old are
sure.
your children now?
So they're big. I have a 20-year-old and a 26-year-old.
Oh, okay. And so my son is 6. So
Mm,
what's it like having adult children? I can't even, sometimes I even just look at 10-year-olds and I'm like, I
yes.
can't imagine.
Yes. No, I know what it's like. Where I remember talking to somebody like saying that I live in New York City and we live within walking distance of my daughter's school. And I remember saying to somebody like I let my daughter walk to school by herself. She was so shocked. You would think I had said like I let her like fly a jetliner. And I was like, your kid will get there. You know what I mean? You just can't imagine like a situation where that is conceivable. It's great. I mean, I have very like one of in the Secrets of Adulthood book, one of my secrets of adulthood is easy children raise good parents. It's
Oh,
much easier to have like positive good parenting style when you have very easy children. And I have to say, I have easy children. Like I really got the with children, you get what you get and you don't get upset just like we tell them. Um so it's fantastic. It's delightful to have and there's a kind of intimacy and ease that you feel and yet you're not responsible anymore for a lot of the
mm,
things going on. And so it's great. It's great.
yeah.
I really
Oh,
love it.
I look forward to those days, but I also like love these days. So it's
Yes.
like it's like you said, every stage is something different. There's good things, there's bad things. Um, I want to talk about the Happiness Project for a
Mm.
little bit because I was thinking back, like that must have been one of the first nonfiction books that I read that I was just like immersed in, like cover to cover.
Mm.
So I guess to start, I'll just ask you, what does happiness mean to you?
Well, I started my career in law, and so I have happy memories of spending an entire semester arguing about the definition of contract. And happiness is even harder. It's an even more elusive concept. There's something like 15 or 17 academic definitions of happiness, and I just don't define it because some people want to spend hours joy versus contentment versus bliss versus well-being versus life satisfaction. I'm like, whatever you want. I think all of us can have our own definition of happiness. It's whatever you bring to it. And what I think is the more interesting and useful question is whatever it is for you, given your life and your circumstances, are there things that you can do to be happier? Next week, next month, next year, are there things you can do with your conscious thoughts and actions that will make you happier? Because I think people can get very confused about what is happiness.
Yeah.
But if you say, but can you be happier? They're like, oh yeah, for sure I can be happier. That's just clearer and a much more constructive thing, I think, to talk about. And there are some people who just really want to throw it down and tell you that they've got a very specific definition of joy, and this is why they're right and you're wrong. And I'm like, have your fun. That's great.
Can you
I'm not
take
a
us?
scientist, so I don't have to have an exact definition
No,
that I
exactly.
apply. Yeah.
And that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever, like two people can have two different definitions of
Well,
what happiness is.
And then sometimes people like to say, like, well, I don't even think about a happy life. I don't think that that's important. What I want is a life full of meaning. I want to have deep, intimate connections with other people. I want to put my values and my identity out into the world. And I'm like, and how is that different from what a happy life would be?
Yeah.
That is a happy life. So again, there's a lot of games that people can play with definitions, which I'm just like, some people really, really love to do that. And I'm just like, whatever, like, let's just get closer to where we're trying to go, however we want to describe it.
When you were writing the Happiness Project, what were some of the things that you started doing that you found had the biggest impact on feeling happy or your happiness?
Well, it's interesting because when I wrote the Happiness Project, I had to think of a framework for even understanding happiness. Like, how do you even conceive of it, or like think about how you would make your life happier? So I came up with this framework. And so you can think of happiness as having like 4 elements that you could work on, and you could work on all of them, which is what I did. But the first one is feeling good. We want to have more feeling good. Friendship, love, enthusiasm, all the things that make us feel good. Then we want to think of the things that make us feel bad. Anger, boredom, resentment, guilt, shame, those emotions. Then you want to think about feeling right. And this is, does your life reflect your values? And sometimes we do something to make our life reflect our values, even though it may not make us feel good, it may make us feel bad. Like maybe we live very far away from our workplace because we want our children to be in a certain school district. We want to be the kind of parent who gives their children the best possible education that we can. And now we're going to have this very long, painful commute, which research shows people don't adjust to a commute. It annoys you every single day. So you feel bad, but you feel right because you're living up to your values. And then the fourth one is an atmosphere of growth. Is there an area in our lives where we're growing, where we're learning or teaching or fixing, pushing ourselves, having that feeling of growth? So when I was doing my own happiness project, I worked on all 4. But I have to say that for me, a lot of the first things that I worked on had to do with feeling bad. Like, I wasn't the kind of mother that I wanted to be. Like, I am a very kind of irritable, high-strung person. I am kind of rigid. I have like my own habits that I really want to stick to. I like to have things a certain way. And, children bring chaos and unpredictability. And so I did a lot of things like making sure that I got enough sleep, making sure that I woke up early enough that I had time to kind of get myself organized before my family woke up, making sure that I didn't let myself get too hungry because I can get really hangry. Really, making sure that I made time to do things like read aloud to my children at night, like things that were really important to me. And celebrating minor holidays, like finding funny little holidays where I would like for St. Patrick's Day, I would like dye the milk green and dye the peanut butter green when my daughters were in a stage where they would eat peanut butter on toast for breakfast. So, or like I would always find like a fun little gentle April Fool's Day prank, or on the day on Leap Day, I got them out of school a little bit early, and then we went and had like all these kind of backwards adventures to celebrate Leap Day. So it was things like that I did that had to do with like, am I being the kind of like the lighthearted, tender, kind of whimsical, patient, tolerant mother that I wanted to be, instead of being like snappish
Mm.
and kind of running around all the time. Like I need to have like Thoreau says, I love a broad margin to my life. I'm a person who needs a broad margin. Like I need a lot of time in between things. And I realized that I had to really step back and set up my life so that I could have that I needed in order to stay like patient and tender and you know, not be crabby all the time.
So a lot of my listeners have young children. And so
Hmm.
all the things that you just spoke about, it's very chaotic, it's unpredictable, it's go, go, go.
Hmm.
And like the word happy, like if you ask someone like, "Oh, are you happy?" Like a lot of people would just be like, "Yeah," but we don't actually sit and think like, is there more that I could do to be
Yes.
happier? So for people listening, how could they reflect? Like, what do we think about to determine whether we're happy and if we could be happier?
Yeah, well, which that was the big project. That's what the happiness project was all about, is exactly that. I mean, I do think that it's hard kind of in the chaos of everyday life to take a minute to stop and to reflect.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could use your birthday, you can use New Year's Eve, you can use halfway day, which is July 2nd. Like there's a lot of things that you can use as a catalyst for reflection, but you don't need a particular date. But I do think it's worth stepping back and maybe, you know, taking some time with like a piece of paper and a pen and a cup of coffee and just thinking to yourself, like, what's working, what's not working, what are the circumstances in which I'm at my best? Like, what do I need to be the kind of person that I want to be? What do I feel like is missing? What do I think is going to lead to my happiness over the long run? And then if you're thinking about it as a mother, you might say like, well, and what is it that I want you know, you might think about your future self and say like, imagine myself having 20 something daughters. Imagine myself having a high school graduate, you know, imagine myself looking back. What will my future self wish that my present self had done now? So for instance, one of the things that I did, is I had these like banker's boxes that had files for every school year of my daughter's school year. And so what I do is like their birthday party invitation, their school photos, some kind of iconic schoolwork that they did, if they got a little certificate. You know, like it's all that kind of paper memorabilia. And I love this so much. I actually created like in my shop on GretchenRubin.com, I have this memento keepsake journal, which has pockets. So you can put that kind of thing in a pocket. It's modeled after a thing that my grandparents gave to me when I was little that I like love so much because it's so fun to like, what did your birthday party invitation look like when you were 10 years old? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's just so exciting. So, because part of what I realized that I wanted to do as a parent is I wanted to be a treasure house of happy memories. I wanted to hold on to things, and you know, we all know that this takes a lot of time. It's a lot easier to just like dump everything, every toy, every piece of, you know, clothing your children have worn, like dump it in the attic, dump it in the basement, whatever. I live in New York City, so I don't have that option, thank goodness, because sometimes people, it's just like, and then they become overwhelmed, and everything feels important because everything that our children have used or loved feels important, and like, how do you make sense of it? So really to do this along the way. We also have something called memento boxes, which these are really kind of child directed. They're these really big plastic boxes. And if something's really, really important, like my daughter had these, we called them the Candyland shoes. They were shoes that were printed with like lifesavers. Very, very cute. And she loved these, loved these, loved these. And it's like, we have to keep one of the Candyland shoes just as a memento. But, you know, there's a box and only so much stuff is going to fit in that box.
Right.
And so you have to keep it limited because memento, this is one of my secrets of adulthood. Souvenirs work best when they are few in number and small in size. So you don't want to keep like the giant plastic slide. You keep like the little plastic, you know, little figurine because that's something
Yeah.
that you can just put on a bookshelf. So I think, you know, so if you're like, well, I want to have a lot of happy memories, what would that look like? Or you also think about traditions. I want like a new tradition. That's kind of an oxymoron, but you might say, I want to have a first day of school tradition or a last day of school tradition or what's the first thing we do when we go visit our grandparents? Or, you know, what is it that's significant to you and how might you like really make it into something for your family?
Your book, Happier at Home, talks about kind of cultivating your physical space to be happier in your physical space. So
Yes.
again, listeners with little kids, our spaces can be cluttered, filled with toys, especially like for me, I was so used to living by myself and everything was pristine. And then you have a child, you have dogs, and it's like chaos.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for my listeners on how to manage your physical space?
Well, in fact, I wrote a whole book about this called Outer Order, Inner Calm, about like why for most of us outer order contributes to inner calm, and like a lot of hacks and suggestions about how to do this in a manageable way, because obviously a lot of us don't have a lot of extra time, energy, or money to throw at it. But
Mm-hmm.
here are some ideas that tend to work really well for people. One is the 1 minute rule. If there's anything you can do in less than a minute, do it without delay. So if you can hang up your coat, if you can sort through the junk mail and throw the junk mail in the recycling, and put the good mail like in your mail drawer, which is what I do, or whatever you do with your mail. Do it without delay, and that gets rid of kind of the scum of clutter that can just be on the surface of life. I'm also a big fan of the 10-minute tidy up, either in the morning or at night, or at both, where you just take 10 minutes and you're like, I'm not cleaning, I'm just tidying things up. I'm putting books back on the bookshelves. I'm putting the toys in the toy box. I'm putting the television remote control back in the holder. I'm just like, just to keep the visual order underway. And then you might think about things like, what are the common issues that you face? So for instance, one of the things we face as a family is everybody's coats were all over everything, all over the floor, all over chairs, like nobody would hang up their coat. And then finally I realized no one is going to use a hanger. Let's put up hooks. So we put up a bunch of hooks, and like people weren't 100%, but it's a lot easier to use a hook than a hanger, especially for a kid. And that just made a big difference. Just like make it logistically easier. You maybe, if you have stairs, maybe have like a basket that you have at the top
I
of the stairs and a basket
love,
you have at the bottom of the stairs, and everything is just going up or down.
yeah.
Every time you go from one room to another, move something with you, and you don't have to take it to where it goes, but you just move it closer. This was a suggestion that a friend of mine gave me, and I was like, I don't understand why that's not just like moving clutter around from room to room. But it's weird. Like if you're just like, well, I'm not walking all the way to the kitchen, but I'm just going to move my coffee cup that much closer to the dishwasher. Over time, things just get put away much faster.
Yeah.
And also, if you are, like you sound like a kind of pristine person or like a fastidious person, sometimes people get into like, I would call overly difficult systems. Like the Legos are too sorted out, or there's too much like two kids have their toys. These are these kids' toys. These are, and when it's just like, okay, we're just going to dump it all together. If you care,
Mm-hmm.
you can sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
Here is something I thought this was hilarious. This is so silly, but it's so funny. So I was talking to somebody who was complaining because she's like, I work full time, I have this great career, I have this great family, and yet what do I find myself doing for like so many, it feels like hours and hours and hours every week, which is my kids, when they take off their pants, they just pull them off and they're inside out. I feel like I spend half my life just turning a pair of pants or a pair of jeans inside out. And I've talked to them and talked to them, and I've threatened them, and I've promised them, and they just won't change. And the answer, what is the answer? What's the easy answer to this question, to this problem?
Uh,
Leave them
I,
inside out.
yeah, I was just gonna
Leave
say,
them inside out. They're clean, they're dry, they're in the drawer. If you want to wear them inside out, feel free. If you want them right side in, you're going to have to do that work. Like, you don't have to do that work. So I think a lot, here's the secret of adulthood from the book. One of the worst uses of time is to do well something that need not be done at all. And so part of it, I think, is like, am I doing things that like really just don't need to be done?
yeah,
Can I just say like, oh, well, we're just not going to do that?
yeah. It's like good enough is good enough. Yeah.
Good enough. And think about like maybe sometimes we are in a season of life, and like one thing that makes me bonkers is like stuff by the front door. So like a lot of shoes by the front door. I have a friend who lived in a brownstone in New York City, and there were so many pairs of shoes at their front door that I was like, you could barely get in the house. I'm like, I really truly think this is a fire hazard. But so part of it is like just like create bins. Like sometimes just like one of my secrets of adulthood is everything looks better arranged on a tray. But it's also like if things are in a bin or a box, it's like even if they're all jumbled, somehow you feel better visually when they're in a bin.
Yeah.
So maybe, buy some bins, put it by the front door, and so you feel like it's sort of under control. And if you can keep at least one room that is off limits to children, so that you do feel like when you're ready for some like adult space, or a friend comes over, or you need to just like sit down and read a book without feeling like you need to spend a half an hour running around putting everything in place, create some place where your children really are not are not making it their own, because it's a bad feeling to feel like my children have pervaded every inch of my space, and there is nothing where it's for me as an adult. That is a bad feeling.
Yeah.
I think.
And this is my issue with open concept houses. Like,
Oh,
I'm so
100%
over it.
agree.
I'm so over it. We
100%.
just built a wall. We hired contractors to come build a wall, which I'm sure when they built our house, they removed the wall.
Yes.
So we put it back, put shelves, closets, and it's funny you were talking about bins, because my mom just came over a couple weekends ago to help me organize, and we went to the home goods store, and it was a buggy full of baskets, and she
Yeah.
just like put everything in baskets, and I was like, oh my God, my house is so functional now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I love
that's
that.
interesting. I hadn't thought about, because there's all this research showing that now children and adults they have warmer relationships, they're more engaged, but that's interesting. I wonder if that's also like the open concept kind of is part of that, because it's like it's not adult space and children's space, or things aren't off in their own zone. Everything kind of pervades everything, and there's something that is nice to that. But I agree with you. I like to feel like a room has a dedicated space. I like boundaries. I like a door. But it is interesting maybe that the things are kind of swinging back, and it's kind of like maybe the world of children and adults is a little bit overly mixed up right now.
It's a little too much. It's too loud. Like, an open concept house is so loud because there's no walls. Everything is just,
Yes.
yeah. So I do want to encourage my listeners to go to your website and do the quizzes, because
Oh, they're so fun, right?
so fun. I spent some time doing the Habits for Happiness quiz. So
Yes.
I filled it out, and I actually saved. So it gives you like aims for increasing your happiness.
Okay, let me explain what the quiz is for people.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, you can just go to GretchenRubin.com and find it. And there's a bunch of quizzes there that are really fun. So this one started because people would always say to me, but if I wanted to work on one habit to be happier, what should I work on? And I would always say, well, I don't know, because it depends on you. We're all different. Like, it depends on your values and your challenges and your circumstances. And people would be like, but what's the habit that was the most important? Like, they were very unsatisfied with that answer. And I was unsatisfied with that answer, but it's really personal. So I created this quiz, which kind of magically, through like quiz design, which I thought we would have to ask like 250 questions. But I think it's like 9 questions or 11 questions, it gets you to an answer, and it's personal. It's not like, what should a person do to be happier? What's the most important habit? It's like, Renee, what for you right now? And this could be different. If you took it in a month, it could change, because we're always kind of changing. But this is like, what for Renee right now would be the thing that would most move the needle? And so you found it accurate?
I was shocked.
I'm so happy to hear that.
It is so funny. So, okay. Practice the 1 minute rule. So if something can be done in a minute, do it without delay. Like, I'm the worst for that. Like, I'll just
But what was your answer? What was your top,
oh.
your kind of category?
Oh, one second. What is it? Okay, so I did the tendency one. So I was a questioner for that. Habits for Happiness quiz results. Does it give you like a...
It gives you like a category. So like the example you gave is like an example of the kind of thing that would work for that category. But what's the category?
Oh, okay. Well, your result: create calm by clearing out unwanted items or tasks.
Yes. Create calm. Yes.
So is that the...
That's what it is. So it's create calm by unwanted items or tasks. So this could be somebody who's overwhelmed by their inbox, or somebody who's overwhelmed by their kids' toys, or somebody who feels like they're swamped by their calendar. This is people who need to like create calm through like creating
It's
order.
crazy.
So that's funny. Like that's very
Like,
much on your mind.
if I flipped my camera around and you saw my desk, you would be like, what in the good God? Like, it looks very clean behind me. Oh, yes,
Yes.
it does. But no,
Oh
I
yeah.
have a desk full of jelly cats. Like, there's
Okay.
shoes beside me. Like, I learned something about, like, if people have ADHD, they tend to, like, put stuff on surfaces.
Mm,
Like, you just, like, plop something down. That
yeah.
is so me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like
And
the
that's
inbox and like all the things were just bang on. Like, don't take home free items. Well, I'm an influencer. I get sent free items all the time. And like things just like clutter up. So
yes.
anyways, that was really fun. So I recommend people go and do the
Yes.
quizzes.
Well,
And then
and the
my tendency was a questioner.
Okay. Well, so the four tendencies is also like a super fun quiz. This is a personality framework that I devised that divides people into upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels. And it tells you a tremendous amount about yourself and how to set yourself up for success if you know your tendencies. So I'm an upholder, but I'm married to a questioner, and you're a questioner. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get my husband to do it. I want to
Yeah.
see what he is. So do you think knowing what your tendency is could help you in like parenting or in interpersonal relationships, like you understand
Yeah.
yourself better?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just briefly, because I'm sure people don't know what it is, I'll briefly describe it and then I'll explain like why I think that it can be so useful. And I will say, like, whenever I speak or whatever, a huge number of people say to me, like, I've written about a bazillion things. They say this four tendencies has like solved like a really long standing conflict with a child. Because once I explain it, you'll see like, oh, I understand like why these conflicts arise. And I also see how to address them. Okay. So what this looks at, the four tendencies, is how you respond to expectations, which sounds boring, but it does get juicy. Okay. So we all respond to two kinds of expectations: outer expectations, like a work deadline, and inner expectations, like I want to keep a New Year's resolution to read every night to my kids. Or like, yeah, I want to keep a New Year's resolution. So depending on whether you meet or resist outer and inner expectations, that's what makes you an upholder, a questioner, obliger, or rebel. So an upholder is somebody who readily meets outer and inner expectations. They meet the work deadline, they keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. They want to know what other people expect from them, but their expectations for themselves are just as important. So they don't need a lot of supervision or deadlines or accountability. They tend to be focused on excellence. They tend to love like calendars. They tend to like really like planning. So their motto is discipline is my freedom. Then there are questioners like you, and questioners question all expectations. They'll do something if they think it makes sense. So they're focused on reasons, justifications. They tend to love to customize. They love research. So what they're doing is they're making everything an inner expectation. If it makes sense to them, they'll do it, no problem. If it doesn't make sense to them, they'll push back. They can sometimes have analysis paralysis because their desire to have perfect, okay, you're pointing to yourself.
I
Where
have a
the
PhD in psychology, by the way. So
okay,
like
yeah. Well, the
this
desire,
is very much like
yeah,
this is so me.
the desire for perfect information makes it hard to move forward or to make a decision. They sometimes can overwhelm and drain other people with their questions. So their motto is, I'll comply if you convince me why.
Hmm.
Then there are obligers. Now, obliger is the biggest tendency for both men and women. This is the group that has the most people in it. So you either are an obliger or you have many obligers in your life. Obligers are people who readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. So these are people who say things like, why do I always keep my promises to other people, but I can't keep my promises to myself? Why is it that I can never make myself the priority? Why can't I put myself first? And the solution for obligers is very straightforward, which is they need outer accountability even to meet an inner expectation. If you want to read more, join a book club where they're going to expect you to read the book. If you want to exercise more, you work out with a trainer. You work out with a friend who's going to be annoyed if you ditch. You raise money for a charity. You take your dog for a run. You think of your duty to be a role model for other people. There's a million ways to create outer accountability once you realize that that is what you need. Obligers make great leaders, great team members, great friends, great family members, because they're the people who are most likely to go the extra mile. They are the tendency that pairs up the most easily with the other tendencies, but they're annoyed because they can't keep their promises to themselves. So their motto is, you can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. And then the smallest tendency is rebel. but it's a conspicuous tendency. Rebels want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do. They can do anything they choose to do. But if you ask or tell them to do something, they're very likely to resist. Like, they don't tell themselves what to do. They don't sign up for a 10 a.m. spin class on Saturday because they think, I don't know what I want to do on Saturday. And just the idea that somebody's going to expect me to show up is going to annoy me. So their motto is, you can't make me, and neither can I. Now, a lot of people know what they are right away. Like, we could do the Game of Thrones characters. We could do Better Call Saul. Yeah. People often immediately recognize, but there's a quiz, GretchenRubin.com. There's a quiz that will tell you and give you a little report. The 4 tendencies is important for parenting because if you don't understand the tendencies, you can really do things in a way that is not suitable for your child. For instance, I heard one of the most poignant stories I ever heard was a guy who said that when he was young, like 10, he was on a soccer team, loved playing soccer. He was the goalie, loved playing soccer. And he had a great coach. And then a new coach, and was like, okay, these are the drills that we're going to do. And this kid went to the coach and said, like, hey, I don't think I should do those drills because I have a completely different kind of position. What about me? I think I should have different drills. And the coach said, I'm the coach of this team, and every member of this team does the same drills. This kid is a questioner. So Renee, I ask you, are you satisfied by the because I say so answer? No, of course you're not. So this kid quit because he's like, I'm not going to do a bunch of dumb exercises that have nothing to do with my position. But had that coach said, hey, I get it. You might think that this would all be irrelevant to you as the goalie, but I have studied the training systems of all the best teams. And what I have seen is the same things matter no matter what your position, speed, accuracy. And I promise you, these are going to work just as well for you in your position as they are for your team members. And that kid would have been like, cool. All I need to know was a reason. I just need to know that somebody is justifying the fact that I'm being asked to do this. And you get an upholder or an obliger or a questioner parent, and you get a rebel child. And that is really hard because the rebel's going to do what they want to do. They're going to do it because they want to. They're going to do it because they decide to. They may do it because it's their identity. They're an artist. They are an animal lover. They're a responsible family member. They're a loving member of the family. They'll do it because they want to. They'll do it because they feel like it. But if you ask or tell them or try to make them do something, you are going to ignite the spirit of resistance. And there's so many parents where if they would just take their hands off the wheel and say, hey, look, it's up to you. Like, I know you've got the chops to get really good grades. I know you're an amazing writer and people love to read your writing. I know you're a great athlete. I know that you have amazing musical skills, but look, it's up to you. If you want to practice piano, that's great. If you want to be on the soccer team, hey, I'll buy you the shoes. I would love to see your work in the school paper because I know like how amazing your writing is and I love any chance to read it. But it's up to you. Because you cannot make people do things. And rebels know that. Rebels will often tell me that they remembered the moment when they figured it out. Like I had somebody saying like, I was like 2 or 3 years old and my mother told me to put on my socks. And I was like, hey, you know what? She can't make me put on these socks. And it's just like dawn of the rebel. So when you know how to speak to and people sometimes say to me like, well, I can't treat all my children differently. And I'm like, well, yeah, you are. Because you can't treat them the same. It just doesn't work. And anybody who has more than one kid knows that perfectly well. You can try to be fair, but you can't treat them the same way because you're not going to get the same result. And something that works for an obliger child is going to be very counterproductive for a rebel child. And you may think that you're a great parent because your kid is doing everything. And it's because, you got an upholder kid. They're doing it themselves. Yeah. It's not you and you're like, oh, your system for packing the backpack. That kid is going to do it no matter what, because that's the kind of kid you've got.
I love that. Now, you have a whole book on this topic.
I do.
Because for people listening.
Yeah, well, I wrote Better Than Before, which is a book about habit change. And I talked about the 21 strategies that you can use to make or break your habits. And I discovered this aspect of human nature when I was trying to figure out, because you could see how the 4 tendencies would influence how people would successfully change their habits. But after the book came out, all anybody wanted to talk about was the four tendencies. I was getting more and more and more questions, and I was getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So finally, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to write a whole book about it.
Yeah.
I feel like now I could write like a whole other book. I've like continued to learn about it. But it's the kind of thing like it's a really basic pattern. Like obligers who are like, oh my gosh, like now I realize all I need is outer accountability and I can get anything done I want. Like they're so relieved. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not like you're lazy or like everybody else is a grown up and there's, you need to change your personality. It's like, no, you just need outer accountability. And guess what? So do a lot of other people because it's the biggest tendency.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think my husband's an upholder. Just listening to you talk, I was like, okay.
Well, I'm an
piecing it
upholder
together.
married to a questioner, and that's a really good pairing. That's one of the easier pairings, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the new book, Secrets of Adulthood. I have it right here.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for this come from? And also, I love the structure of how it's written in just little tidbits of information. I love that.
Yeah, just one sentence or two sentences. Yeah,
And it's just like, things just kind of hit home. So where did the idea for this book come from?
Well, I wanted to, because I do have these two young adult daughters, and my next book actually is going to be called Project Empty Nest. It's going to be about dealing with the empty nest stage, which, by the way, you should start very early. Don't wait for them to leave the house. But I wanted to collect sort of the lessons that I had learned, like through time and experience, usually the hard way, lessons that I learned. And as I started gathering them, I realized I need these lessons just as much. Like I keep learning and relearning the same lessons over and over. Like working is one of the most dangerous forms of procrastination.
That's the one I wrote down.
Oh yeah, right? It's so true.
Because I read that and I was like, stop.
No, a friend of mine was like, I've been spending a lot of time like thinking about fonts, and I'm like, let me stop you right there because you are not working. That might be fun, but that is not original writing. Or something that can be done at any time is often done at no time. Like I realized like I need to attach like a date to things. That's why I love like a calendar of catalysts because I like having a date attached to something. So I wanted to remind myself of them. I wanted to remind my daughters of them. And then I also wanted to use the literary form of the aphorism. And nobody knows what an aphorism is. So an aphorism is like, it's a very brief statement that is aiming to shed light on sort of like general observation about human nature. And it's attributed to a person because we all know a lot of proverbs like you're only as happy as your least happy child, or a stumble may prevent a fall. That's folk wisdom. But with an aphorism, you know that Mark Twain said it, or Warren Buffett said it, or Montaigne said it, or Pascal said it. It's attributed to a specific person. But it's a very artful form. It's really trying to use brevity as a way to crystallize thought. You really try to aim for kind of elegance of expression or some kind of insight. And because they're very short, they're easy to take in. You may disagree. I mean, I've had people say, well, I disagree with that aphorism. I'm like, that's amazing. You absolutely should disagree. But it's like having a thought is so difficult. These help you have a thought because they're so short and they're the crystallizations of ideas.
It's actually, I was just thinking, it's a good idea for a date night with your partner to go over these and have a discussion about them.
I love that. People have told me they've used them like around a dinner table, but that's a great idea for a date night. Yeah, because people will often, they might disagree. They might have a really interesting example. They may have their own twist. Like I was talking to a friend about the aphorism, we care for many people we don't particularly care for, which I think people get. But he said, oh, I would also say, because he's a writer, he said, I would also say we care about many people we don't particularly care about. And he was thinking of things like celebrity gossip or like snarky Amazon reviews. I don't really care about those people. But I do kind of care about those people. We care about people we don't particularly care about. Whereas I was thinking we care for many people we don't particularly care for. Those are different, but like he put his own twist on it. And then one of mine, because this is literally true and metaphorically true, is if you don't like a pair of pants, don't pay to get them hemmed. And a friend of mine was like, I absolutely disagree. Like, I often will do that. And then they work. And I'm like, okay, in my observation, that never works. But if it works for you, that's great.
Okay, can you touch more on the working as one of the most dangerous forms of procrastination? Because like, I do this for sure. But I also have a job. Like I came from grad school where you could be doing work 24/7.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing work, you feel guilty for not doing work because there's always something that you could be doing.
Yes.
And then now in this line of work, I work for myself, like have a business, have a podcast, I'm on social media. It's the same thing. It's not like I have a 9 to 5. It's like I can always be doing something. So if I have a free moment, it's like I'm doing something productive for work.
Well, I'm talking about something a little different. So you put your own gloss on it.
Okay.
So you're talking about how do I stop working if I can always be working, which is a problem for people who sort of like are who aren't working for somebody else with like hours. It's like you could just be working all the time. No, this is more like, and maybe you have this as a questioner where like you love research. So as a nonfiction writer, we nonfiction writers are often reminding ourselves, like, you can't just do research and say you're working. Because if what you need to do is to be finishing a draft, spending 3 hours researching the history of like the French court before the, before the revolution, it's kind of working. It's not the same thing as like sitting on the sofa and watching television or like chatting with a friend on the phone. But is it really working in that it is accomplishing what is your highest priority at the moment? No, it is a form of procrastination. Or like all the people who are like, now that I'm sitting down to do this monthly report that is really, really challenging to do, I'm going to run a load of laundry, and then I'm going to alphabetize the books on my shelf, and I'm going to answer every email, and I'm going to like buy the tickets for our holiday vacation. I'm not having fun. I'm working, but I'm actually procrastinating because it's giving me an excuse not to work on the thing that I actually know I should be working on.
This is a big problem, I think, for people that work from home.
It is a big problem for people who work from home. It is a big problem. That's why a lot of people go to a WeWork or a coffee shop or something, because at home, there's just an infinite number of things that you could be doing productively. It's not that they're not productive, but they are not getting you to do what it is that you want to be doing at that moment.
Yeah. How do you, like, I have a first chapter of a book. I always get asked to write a book on like motherhood and things like that. Like, I wrote a dissertation, so like I know I'm capable, but how do you, like, what's your advice for someone to be focused and not procrastinate by, doing laundry and other stuff? Okay.
Here is my most important piece of advice for anyone who wants to be a writer. Have something to say. Know what it is that you want to say. Because in my observation, and I know this from my own experience, is that when it's really, really hard to write, a lot of times it's because you're just trying to fill up words. You're like, somebody said I should write a book about motherhood. I have a lot of stuff. I have many thoughts about motherhood. Now I will write a book about motherhood. It's like, what are you trying to say? That's like not enough.
Overarching?
No, it's like, what are you trying to communicate? What is your news? Are you bringing news to the world? Like, what are you like, this is the thing that I have to communicate to you.
Okay.
Like for me, outer order, inner calm. I'm like, I so believe this. For most people, outer order contributes to inner calm to a kind of disproportionate degree. Why? Why is that so? Do other people feel the same way I do? If that is true, and I think it is, how can we create outer order more easily? It's like, I had so much to say.
Yeah.
I had things that I wanted to research about. I wanted to talk to people about. I had theories, some of which came true and some of which turned out not to be true. Like, I had something to say. Having a subject is not having something to say. Yeah. Or like, I want to write a book about grief. Okay, that is not enough to get you started writing. You have to have something to say. So once you have something to say and you're like, okay, I've got something to say, but like, how do I go about it? You're a questioner. So I would say, okay, how would you do this as a questioner? So questioners love systems, but they have to feel like it's the most efficient system, and they have to feel like it's customized to them. So I would spend a lot of time being like, do I want to work in the morning or at night? What's my area of productivity? When can I slot this into my day so that it doesn't get encroached upon? Should I use a computer? Should I handwrite? Should I get a writing software? Give yourself a limited amount of time to really think about your system and your process, because for questioners, that's really important. They have to know that they're doing it in the best, most efficient way. That's going to be really important. Do not let that go on forever. Like, give yourself a limit. Like, I'm going to spend 3 weeks investigating this. Maybe you find somebody who is kind of like same as you and say, well, what do you you do. Maybe I'll just do what you do. If it works for you, it probably works for me. Um, and then do it. Questioners can, once they make up their mind, they can follow it if they feel like it is the most efficient system. But like, do you work best in total silence? Do you work best with music? Do you work best in a busy coffee shop? Are you very distracted by being in your home? Do you need to get out? Like maybe it is. I have a friend who was like, it's worth it to me to like rent a little space for an office because my productivity is so much higher. It feels like I have an office at my house. Why it feels kind of wasteful, but she said it's not wasteful because I use it all the time and it really dramatically affects my productivity. So, and then in my book, Life in Five Senses, I talk a lot about like the sensory surroundings and how we can use our sensory surroundings to contribute to our productivity and focus. But it's really just a question of like, what works for you. And here, so you wrote a dissertation, so you probably are like, well, I did that. What are the lessons for me in terms of why I was able to do that? What is different now from then? Because like one thing is accountability.
That's
like,
what I was just going to say. Like I had deadlines, I had
Yeah.
to graduate, I had meetings that were ongoing
Yes.
with like ideas. It's like a whole thing. But now it's just, I'm on an island by myself. Like, yeah.
You have an audience. Why don't you commit to your audience? Why don't you say, I'm going to commit to you right now that on the last day of every month, I'm going to report in on how well I'm doing. And this is what I'm aiming for. I'm going to write a chapter a month for a year, and they don't have to be great, but I'm gonna march through them. And at the end of the month, I'm going to start, however you set it
Yeah.
up for yourself. I think there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. But believe me, people would love it and they would hold you accountable, and you could say to them, come along with me, we'll all do this together. And if I let myself off the hook, all these other people are going to feel like they're going to be able to let themselves off the hook, and I don't want them to let themselves down, so I can't let them see me slack off.
Yeah.
There's a million ways to create utter accountability, but here's a great example of knowing yourself. So you're saying, okay, accountability would work. Classic. There's a million ways to create outer accountability. But I have a friend who's a nonfiction writer, and he wrote the whole book before he even got an agent or tried to sell it. And I said, that's unconventional. Why did you do that? And he said, and he's a rebel. He didn't say that. He didn't know he was a rebel. But he said, because look, I'm writing a book because it's fun for me. I think I have all this brilliant insight that people don't understand. I wanted to communicate to the world. I enjoy writing. So I wrote it because that's what I felt like doing. But I knew that the minute I had an agent and an editor and they were asking me about like turning things in at a certain time and putting me on a schedule, that I wouldn't want to do it. So he's like, so I just did it because I wanted to. And then I'm like, you know what I feel like doing? I feel like getting paid for this. Therefore, I will get an agent and I will sign a book contract because I'm willing to do it, because now they're saying, I'll pay you for that. But so that was a good example of setting himself up for success.
Yeah.
Because most people would say that's not the conventional wisdom about how people go about writing a nonfiction book, but he understood himself that that was what would work for him. So I would look back in your past. When have I succeeded in the past? What sounds like the kind of thing that would keep me on track? And the fact is, you kind of know some information already because you haven't been working on it, right? You sort of say you're doing it, but you're not really doing it. So whatever you're doing now, that's information. Don't be hard on yourself. Just say like, okay, well, I've learned that whatever I'm doing now isn't sufficient. What is it that would need to change? How can I make it more convenient? Can I make it more pleasant? Can I, all these questions can come into play, and there's no one right answer, because for one person, it's like, it needs to be as convenient as possible. I have to work at home. And somebody else is like, I gotta get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because one thing that people find so difficult is sticking to physical activity. And that has been easy for me, but it's because I go to a gym and it's very like community, and you know what I mean? And so like people expect you to show up, and whereas writing a book is like a very singular.
Renee, I wonder if you're an obliger, actually.
Oh my gosh. Maybe.
Do you feel like it's easy to keep your promises to other people, but it's hard to keep your promises to yourself? Or
No, I am not
know-
a people pleaser at all.
Well,
I'm
it's
like,
not about people pleasing. It's not about people pleasing. You can be an obliger and not care at all about other people. But you have been self-employed and everything, so maybe you are a questioner. Anyway, if you took the quiz and you got questioner, but it sounds like you like having that structure in your life,
Yeah.
the deadlines and that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, so if you like social and you like accountability, maybe
should do
you
that.
find you find a group of people who want to be writers. I know people who do this out of the house, but you can also do it with, I think it's, what's it called? Anyway, there's an app where you like literally log in with
Oh,
other people and you turn off, you put it on mute and they just see you there working, but you know somebody is like got eyes on you. And you know, so again, they're all different kinds of ways to set up systems that work for us. Once we stop and say, what kind of person am I? What
yeah.
works for me? What appeals to me? What has worked for me in the past? What is realistic and manageable? And you start to say, well, you know what? 3 mornings a week, I really could go out for a good 2 hours and work in this coffee shop that I love. And if I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, okay, you can't do anything else, I'm going to leave my phone in my car and I'm only going to work on this draft for 2 hours. One of the things that's really noticeable is we often overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time, like a weekend. If we like, you know, oh, we're going to clear clutter, we're going to clear out the house in a weekend. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But we underestimate what we can get done over the long run if we do a little bit at a time, a
Yeah.
little bit very consistently over time. It's amazing how much you can get done. So maybe, you know, and again, think back to your graduate school days. What was it about? Think about your exercise. Okay, the social part of it. Like, what are all the elements that make something feel right? I would also say, you know, another one of my secrets of adulthood is beautiful tools make work a joy. And I wouldn't like run out and buy a whole bunch of equipment before,
That's
you
so
know.
me.
No, I have a friend who like bought everything for rollerblading, and then she's like, then it was over. Like that's the part
Yeah.
that was the fun part for her. But one of the things you could do is you could be like, okay, I'm going to work on this steadily for 2 months, and if I'm really doing it, you know, I'm going to splurge for that new laptop because I'm really showing myself that I am sticking to it, and so I would like to make that work a little easier. It's not a reward. It's something because what it is it takes you deeper into the habit. It's a thing, it's a tool that will make that work easier and more pleasant. So it's like you've started cooking a lot, so you buy some great new knives. You don't buy yourself a great pair of new boots,
Yeah.
right? As a reward for cooking more. You're like, I'm going to do something that is going to make that thing that I'm already doing and that I want to encourage myself to do more of easier and more pleasant. So you show to yourself, I'm actually writing. This isn't just my fantasy self. I'm actually doing the writing. And now I'm seeing that, wow, this computer's pretty buggy, pretty slow. If I went ahead and got that new laptop, it might just be that much easier.
I love that. All that advice is so generalizable to anything
It is.
that somebody wants to start doing. So that's great. I feel like I got a free therapy session.
Excellent. Cheaper than therapy.
Oh yeah. Okay, so before I let you go, Secrets of Adulthood is out now.
Yes.
What do you hope people get from reading this book?
Well, you know, we've all had the experience where like you read a single line and your life is illuminated. Like you see your way forward with like a difficult decision, or you understand someone's nature in a new way, or you understand your own thoughts. You're like, oh my gosh, I have thought that myself. I just never really quite put it into words, but now I feel like my own thoughts are clearer to me. That's so exciting. So what I hope with this is that, you know, as people read them, I hope that they find them thought provoking. I hope they find them, there's room in the back for you to write your own secrets of adulthood, because a lot of times when people are reading these, they're like, I have a secret of adulthood too. Or like, my grandfather had a secret of adulthood, he always told me. So it's kind of fun to like write your own. It's very gratifying and creative, to write your own. So I hope that they do that. But I really do hope that here's a proverb: when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I hope that for some, you know, people will read it or talk about it, and it will somehow give them some kind of insight or clarity for one of the, you know, perplexing situations that we find ourselves in as adults. Somebody said, "When do you become an adult?" And I was like, probably never. I don't think that we are ever the adults that we thought we would be when we were children.
I know. When I think back to being a child, and like I'm 40 now, and I would think back to when I was a kid and my uncle was 40, and I was like, oh my God, like that's me now? Like it can't be.
I know, because they seem like so self-assured and confident, and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm just like, whoa. Anyways, well, this was great. This was like a dream to be able to chat with you. Thank you so much. I look forward to the Empty Nest
Oh,
book.
good. Yes. If you have
Yeah.
any ideas or resources, like I'm in the thick of it right now, and so I'm at, I'm just like gathering in
Gathering.
everything. Yeah.
No, for sure. As I'm like scrolling, because I'm
Yes.
such in the motherhood space, if I see
Yes.
anything, I'll shoot it your
No,
way for
please do,
sure.
because that's often where I get my best ideas. Okay, gotta run. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.